Jewish Shamanism, Soul Rectification, Shar Hagugilim, The Gates of Reincarnation, Chapter 4, Details of Reincarnation. As part of the issue of reincarnation, the matter of double reincarnation will be explained, what it involves. This is what he said. Footnote 154. The Arizal, or the uh, great minds of the Jewish tradition, held together as a single man. This is what he said. There are two other distinctions that apply only to reincarnation. One is that someone who is new and in this world for the first time, who merited to achieve Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, after which he sinned and blemished them. This person, when he returns to reincarnate and become rectified, footnote 175, in other words, he completed his entire rectification in his first incarnation, but he subsequently sinned and blemished his nefesh, ruach, and neshama, and was not able to rectify them before dying. This person, when he returns to reincarnate and become rectified, will not be able to achieve nefesh, ruach, and neshama at one time, if not through the rectification explained previously on the previous page, reciting when going to bed the verse, "My soul desired you during the night." Footnote 176. Even though he was able to rectify all three levels in his first incarnation, the fact that he died before rectifying them again means that all three will have to return in a blemished state the next time. My note, O my soul, first beginning with the Shema Yisrael, Adonai, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Adonai Yahuwah Ahad. Hear mortals, or hear, O Israel, he who is the Lord is our habitation. He who is the Lord is singular and unique. Then, I won't read the Hebrew for Isaiah 26:9, but I'll read my translation. My soul desired you during the night. I translate this: O my soul, I beseech thee in the night, in the midst of my spirit, in the midst of me. I will, like a polished copper mirror, verdure and verdegris thee, ken ye hirazon. Those are two different types of green and greening processes that occur. So there's uh, the oxidation of copper, which turns it green, and the clearing of oxidation, which turns it back into its proper color, which is another form of green. The second is someone for whom it is the first time and is new, and has only merited the nephesh, and has sinned and blemished it. When he will reincarnate, he will be able to achieve nephesh, ruach, and neshama in that incarnation, in that reincarnation itself, since from the beginning he did not blemish his ruach and the neshama. Footnote 177. In other words, since he rectified his entire nephesh in his first incarnation, though he later sinned and blemished it, after he rectifies it again, he can achieve his ruach and even his neshama in the same reincarnation, as is the case for anyone during his first incarnation. So you have your uh, kindling, so to speak, and you're trying to set it all ablaze. Try to turn literally each spark into something illumined. If for some reason your fire uh, diminishes, some of the sparks are no longer lit, then you'll come back, but the fire will still be going, and all you'll have to do is light up those sparks, that area which didn't light. You can see this as, well, light up those areas that didn't light, and then you'll merit getting your Ruach and Neshama, and again, setting them ablaze in the same sword. If they begin to weaken out, almost like a battery, I guess you would say. If the battery begins to weaken, you don't go down to 0% battery. You are at 78%, and when you get to the next body, you charge up to 100%, and you can add on top of that another device, fully charged, and it can charge something else, and something can come down and while adding, let's say using uh, your battery, so that it can plug in as well, and it doesn't lose any of its original charge. It just becomes brighter. That's one way of looking at it. Let's the They are able to join with the nefesh after it is rectified, and if it is the first time, as it says, if he merits it, they give him more, as mentioned above. Footnote 178. This is from the Zohar, as mentioned at the beginning of the Sefer. This is not so when they all came together at the beginning, and he blemished all of them. Footnote 179, just as mentioned above. How can a rectified nefesh be a chariot for a blemished ruach? And likewise for the neshama. However, if at the beginning only the nefesh was blemished, the three of them can come after that in one reincarnation as mentioned. It seems, in my humble opinion, that with respect to all levels of rectification, that is, the fulfillment of mitzvos corresponding to the limbs of the nefesh, and the levels of blemish, which are the transgression of negative mitzvos, as it is known, the completion of the entry of the nefesh into the body, called rectification of the nefesh, is only through the performance of mitzvos. Sins only blemish the nefesh, and do not prevent its sparks from entering. Footnote 180. Hence, if someone performs only enough mitzvos to draw into his body a certain percentage of sparks and then dies, he will have to return in another incarnation to draw into his next body the remaining sparks. Once he finishes that, then he will have to die before achieving the next level of soul. However, if someone draws into his body all of the sparks of his nefesh, and then as a result of his sin blemishes some, he will only have to reincarnate to rectify the blemish. And if he does so, then he can, as mentioned above, draw his Ruach and Neshama into him in the same reincarnation. Chapter 4, Details of Reincarnation. Part 2, Rectification and Resurrection. However, there are two other distinctions in this matter. If during the first time when he only achieved his nefesh, he did not merit to completely rectify it and dies, since this first body did not completely rectify the entire level of nefesh at the time of resurrection of the dead. Footnote 181, Tekiyas ha Nisim in Hebrew is a fundamental of Jewish belief, 13 Principles of Faith, Sanhedrin 90a. It takes place prior to 6000, the year 6000 of the Jewish calendar. Midrash Ni Elam, Toldos 140a, for the sake of restoring the spiritual splendor of the physical body to what it once was prior to the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge and good and evil. Drushe, Olam HaTohu, Chelip 2, Drush 4, Anaf 12, Siman 9. The first body will only have the specific parts rectified during its lifetime. Therefore, when the nefesh reincarnates into another body to complete its rectification, and it is able to achieve nefesh, ruach, and neshama, then the aspects of the parts of the nefesh that were rectified in this second body, together with all of the ruach and neshama, will be for the second body at the time of resurrection. The first body will have no portion in the Ruach and Neshama, but it will share with the second body some of the Nefesh according to what has been rectified of it. The rest will belong to the second body. Footnote 182. Thus, in Takiyas Ha Mishim, it will be possible for one soul to be divided between two coexisting bodies. This is according to what was mentioned earlier, and I've heard this from Sufis that you will have a great soul or an angel who will be able to place their ibur uh, upon uh, more than one person at a time. So just because a person says they have the neshama or nefesh or ruach of a particular, let's say Moses ben Maimon, it does not mean that for other people he isn't working with four other people at the same time to maximize anything he didn't get done. Or that he just wants to add to his glory, the glory provided by God in heaven. This is according to what was mentioned earlier in Sabah al-Mishpatim regarding the matter of Yibum. The first body, which was not successful at procreation, only merits the individual spark of this nefesh, the spark that was left in his wife from the first relations. The remaining parts of the nefesh, together with the ruach and the neshama, are for the second body. This is the sod of what is written in the Zohar in Parashas Chaya Sarah, page 131a. These bodies which were unsuccessful are as if they never existed. Footnote 183, at fathering offspring. This thing is remarkable. There isn't a Jew who is filled with mitzvos like a pomegranate. There, this, the so basically that first life just kind of dissipates, and you can come back into a brand new body with more parts of your soul present. That brand new body could be the one after you have sparking your wife, but that's the flame didn't catch into a new body or soul. Your brother's spark produces one that captures the one you started, and you can come back right away into that body and begin working on those matters. Uh, those bodies which were raised by your wife and your biological brother, those bodies which were unsuccessful are as if they never existed. This thing is remarkable because there isn't a Jew who is not filled with mitzvot like a pomegranate. Footnote 184, Brockles 57a. Though the body may have failed to procreate, it must by definition have many other mitzvot to its credit. Why will it be completely eliminated at the time of resurrection? This alludes to what is said that the main pleasure in the time to come, footnote 185, the period of resurrection of the dead, is on the level of the Ruach and Neshama, the first body that doesn't even have a complete nefesh, only specific sparks, the sparks that was left in his wife, etc. 186. When the brother in law performs Yibum with his deceased brother's wife, the spirit that the first husband left in her leaves and returns to its place. It returns, however, during the resurrection of the dead in its original body that died without leaving children. Will have no pleasure, relatively speaking, it will be as if it never existed. I think what this means is that you take your wife with you to heaven, but if she doesn't produce a child from you, and using the method where your brother brings forward a child as well, you won't be able to have intimate sexual pleasures with her, or possibly any other uh, well, and so any other woman. I think what happens in this realm, you can take the sense that our spirits are sent to heaven, take on some type of heavenly body, and are able to interact and experience carnal desires in heaven. Possibly, and it's possible also that copies of ourselves. So, say you are your wife, you want to be with your wife in the other world. Um, for that to happen, your brother. So, for you want to be with your wife in the other world, well, she doesn't want to be with you in the other world. For instance, she wants to be somewhere else. It's possible that uh, a version of your wife is brought to you, and that you can be with her in that world, whereas the actual person who lived and breathed, she may go elsewhere. Even if she, yeah, so she may go elsewhere as a result. So there may be different copies of you available, and they're just saying here, if you didn't produce a child with her, you won't have the great pleasure of being with her in heaven. And if your brother didn't do it, then so finally you won't have that pleasure. That's just a way to get it done. And if that didn't happen, then you won't have the pleasure of your wife in heaven. If you did produce children, then that's great. You have already, you're not amongst this group. You'll go forward and uh, reincarnate in all the proper ways. And let's say your brother married your ex, your widow, but you already had children. Well, he doesn't need to necessarily produce more children with her. You've already had children, and he just she's been brought into the family. Your brother was unmarried, and he married her so she could remain in the family and have the other brother who was unmarried at the time. So chapter 4, details of reincarnation. Part 3, double reincarnation. However, if the first body merited to rectify the entire nefesh, but later blemished it, footnote 187, therefore the entire nefesh is associated with this body. When this nefesh reincarnates with the ruach and neshama in a second body, as mentioned, they will reincarnate with the spark of another nefesh in order to help them with mitzvos. Footnote 188. This was discussed at the end of chapter 1, where it is explained that an unrectified ruach cannot reincarnate together with a rectified nefesh, necessitating the inclusion of an additional nefesh. This is called a double reincarnation. Footnote 189. This is because there are two nefeshus in the body, the original one and this extra spark. Remember this matter well. In my note, the reasons we are converting The reasons why we are accepting converts to Mosaic Judaism is to provide nefashos for unrectified Jewish souls to reach rectification. We call these Ayogwedes, holy guardian angels. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to Judaism. There is an official way to become a Jewish person who you don't know that you were born into it, or even to become practicing. I've gone to Chabad just to learn, but you can figure out what the way is. But welcome in terms of your indications that you would like to be here. Welcome back for those who grew up with it. And now your souls will be available to have been improved and be used, inhabited with the glorious of Holy Guardian Angel, who helps you with the good deeds and shares with you in that good. After that, At any time after that, at the time of resurrection, the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama will return in the first body. Footnote 190. Since the entire Nefesh was rectified in the first body, it is associated with the first body, and therefore so are the Ruach and Neshama as well. The second body will only merit the spark of the additional nefesh that came to it since it was its main one, being that the original nefesh has already been completely rectified in the first body. Thus, it will be that it will have worked for the others. Footnote number 191. All the rectification that was achieved in the second body will belong to the Nefesh that returned to the first body. Thus, it will be that it will have worked for others. Footnote 191, all the rectification that was achieved in the second body will belong to the Nefesh that returns to the first body, as alluded to by Rav Sheshish, who said, rejoice, my Nefesh, for you I have read, for you I have learned. Footnote 192, Pesachim 68b. This will be discussed in detail at the end of this chapter. Uh, Chapter 4, Details of Reincarnation, Part 4, Rectifying Blemished Souls. It is necessary to know that if a person merited his nefesh, ruach, and neshama, and then blemished them, as it has been explained, when they return in a reincarnation, the three of them will not come together. Rather, each will reincarnate on its own, and the judgment of this nefesh, ruach, and neshama needs to be known. Know that when the nefesh reincarnates in another body to become rectified, and it is rectified, the ruach is unable to enter, as mentioned. How can a blemished ruach be clothed within a rectified nefesh? If we say that the blemished ruach should enter the nefesh before it is rectified, this is not possible since a ruach cannot enter until the nefesh has been rectified, since the nefesh is lower than its level. Rather, the ruach will come in another reincarnation by itself, attached to the nefesh of a convert in place of his own nefesh, and become rectified. This is the sod of what is written in Sabah of Mishpatim, page 98b. Their souls bump into the souls of converts, and they merit. Footnote 193. The Zohar refers to the souls that are in the lower Garden of Eden, and how when they ascend at certain times on Shabbos, holidays, and the first day of the Jewish month, to enjoy the upper Garden of Eden, they bump into the souls of converts that hover around the lower Garden of Eden. If they acquire one of them, then they ascend within the nephesh of the convert, and then later return to the lower garden with it as well. When after 12 months later the Jewish soul ascends to the upper Garden of Eden, the souls of the converts merit to remain in the lower Garden of Eden. This is because a ruach by itself, or a neshama on its own, cannot be clothed within a body without a nefesh. Therefore, they use the nefesh of a convert as its replacement, and with it become rectified. With this, a big wonder can be clarified from what can be found in our words. The majority of people only merit their nefesh, and only a small number in these later generations will ever merit Ruach and Neshama. Yet you know that Ben David, footnote 194, that is, Moshiach ben David, the eventual redeemer of the Jewish people and the entire world, will not come until the Rukus and Neshamos have completely rectified. Footnote 194, footnote 195. Yevamos 62, the implication is that most people are not able to rectify their rukus and neshamus, and that Moshiach, therefore, would never be able to come. So I have my own note. Jesus Christ was Ben Nathaniel ben David through his mother, and its treatment by the rabbis and Roman authorities means ruachs and neshama, or rukus and neshamas were not rectified. The Rectification Messiah descends from Shlomo ben David. There are two Messiahs from David, ben Nathaniel and ben Shlomo or Solomon. There are two Messiahs from Joseph ben Manasseh and ben Ephraim. There is the righteous teacher who is like Isaiah, and the seat saver with Neshama or Ebord, Elijah. However, it can be understood from what has been said that the Ruach and Neshama can reincarnate into other bodies with the Nefesh of a convert and also become rectified. Footnote 196. Thus, even though he has yet to rectify his Ruach and Neshama in his original body, they can nevertheless undergo rectification in a different body. The main nefesh, once it achieves rectification, can receive the ruach of a righteous person who was similar to him in behavior and literally replace his ruach. Similarly, in this way, he will become rectified to the point that he can also gain the neshama of a righteous person. When this nefesh leaves the world, if its main ruach has still not become rectified, then in the meantime, this nefesh will go with the ruach of the righteous person to the world to come, and because of it receive divine flow. Footnote 197, divine light, the reward of the world to come. Befitting it. Footnote 198, that is, the soul of the righteous person. Once the Ruach completes its own rectification in another body, as mentioned, then the Nefesh will say, I will return to my original person, and join with its Ruach. It is the same with respect to the Neshama. Once it is rectified, the Nefesh and Ruach will return together with it, as mentioned. So, a recap. Your Nefesh has been perfected and your ruach would like to come down, but let's say for some reason your ruach is not perfected, the unperfected or unrectified ruach cannot live within your nefesh. So what it does is it finds a convert who has a nefesh that it can live with, and by supporting that convert, it clarifies itself as a ruach. It becomes the ruach of that convert who may have an unblemished soul or some type of way they work out well together. The nefesh of that convert becomes better, and your ruach becomes better. Then it finds, once it's filled up, it finds you again, and now your nefesh, even in the same life, can be joined by your purified ruach, and then your neshama does same process too of becoming purified, and then joins you. So the process of doing the whole night prayer is that while you sleep, you release them all, and they can go and do good works and become better, and so they can come back to your body in a night and a period of 3 weeks, let's say. They can become all purified within one life, and then there's no reason to come back. You just wait for the final day. Maybe there's very good reasons that people return, but in the sense that an end to incarnation into the world to come, that can happen as well. This may be why certain Abrahamic traditions don't teach reincarnation, because I think in the ideal world, you would come down, you would live perfectly, get merit every single part of your soul to be fully ensparkled, you would say. Leave your children and leave the world and wait to the world to come. And so it's possible that someone can come here and leave without this process going on. And most religion teaches us to do that. Not necessarily what's being taught here, but I truly believe this will be to the benefit of many people who might hear it. Okay, I'm going to stop there at part 4 before moving on to part 5, the righteous and the evil.